Okay, so we're doing a quick lesson on aggregate supply. So first off, the long run aggregate supply is vertical because in the long run, input prices and wages will rise and fall to counteract the rises and falls in price levels, which will ultimately cause a firm to not make more or less profit based off of price changes, which will then cause no incentive for them to change the real output of their. So in the short run, there's a positive relationship between the price level and the real output, which is shown by the upward sloping nature of the short run aggregate supply curve. At any level of output, the per unit production cost tells like what the price at that given output, and all it is the total input cost over the units of output. There are three determinants of the short run aggregate supply curve. The first being input prices, which ranges anywhere from resources needed for production to wages of workers. The second would be changes in productivity. So productivity just is the total output over total inputs, and so productivity can be affected by a firm buying new machinery, maybe an advancing technology, more educated workforce, things like that, and changes in legal institutional environment, which is if the government were to impose per unit taxes or subsidies on a firm, or the extent of regulation, which means like to say the more the regulation there is on a certain product, the it's going to tend to shift the aggregate supply curve to the left because it'll increase its price. The regulation will increase the price of its input needs. So when the short run aggregate supply curve shifts, it'll either shift to the left, which indicates a decrease in aggregate supply, or it will that is a decrease, and then if it were to shift to the right, that would indicate an increase. So when aggregate supply decreases, price level would go up and real output would go down, and when the aggregate supply increases, price level goes down and the real output goes up. So a firm will operate where the short run aggregate supply curve and the aggregate demand curve intersect, and this point right here is called our equilibrium point, and it determines the equilibrium price level and the equilibrium quantity. So as I said before, there are shifters of the short run aggregate supply curve. So let's say that a government imposes more taxes on a firm. This would cause the aggregate supply curve to decrease, which would be a leftward shift. So this would be our new aggregate supply curve, and then that would cause price level. So now here, aggregate demand and the new aggregate supply, they cross here. So new equilibrium point, price level is there, and our new output is here. So that shows that when the aggregate supply decreases, price level increases, and the quantity decreases. Then we have cost push inflation, which is when aggregate supply suddenly shifts up to the left like this. This is also referred to as an aggregate supply shock. It causes price levels to rise, as well as it causes a negative GDP gap, and it can cause a recession. So on the other hand, aggregate supply could also shift to the right here, which indicates an increase in aggregate supply. And something that could cause that would be, like say, a subsidy, or something that would cause the aggregate supply to increase would be if a firm got a new piece of machinery, or if workers' wages went down. So this would be, we'll call this AS, our second new AS. And so here this shows that if this is our new equilibrium point where it crosses the aggregate demand curve, our quantity is now increasing from the original, and our price is decreasing from the original price.